there, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker. Today we're going to be covering Paramore's 2017 album, After Laughter. I've never really dug into Paramore's discography, and if you had watched last week's video, you know that my buddy had loaned me a bunch of records he thought I was going to hate, and this was among them. I had never really listened to Paramore before, or this record. I found myself enjoying this record a lot more than disliking it, so I decided to set it aside and do a full review of it, and I'm glad that I did, because I really like this record quite a lot. We're going to dig through the track listing here. Side 1 has Hard Times, Rose-Colored Boy, Told You So, Forgiveness, Fake Happy, and 26. Side 2 is Pool, Grudges, Caught in the Middle, Idle Warship, No Friend, and Tell Me How. We're going to give this a spin and come back to you on the flip side. Side 1 starts off the track listing with Hard Times. Kicks off the record with pretty much like a bubblegum pop sensibilities, lots of upbeat tempos and fun lyrics, with really like nice swinging instrumentation in there as well. Hayley Williams during some of these verses kind of sounds like she's channeling some like Talking Heads or even like some Tom Tom Club stuff on this one. Track 2 on the record is Rose-Colored Boy. Paramore keeps up speed with the song on this record, with more upbeat poppy bass lines and keyboard heavy like verses, and strong choruses on this one as well. Further drawing parallels between like this track and this album and Tom Tom Club. Honestly, a lot of the stuff that caught me off guard about this record was just how versatile it is, with just like it's a very straight up pop sound, but it's drawing from a lot of influences. So I would argue, despite this being like, I would say one of their less traditional pop punk style albums, there's a lot here going on that I think meets more criteria for just being like an all-around taste of every little genre you could fit into Paramore's scope. Even though it's all presented in a pop format, you can really see where they're just drawing their influences on this thing. Track 3 is Told You So. Tight drumming and bass lead this track off for a firm dance pace. Everything on this track grooves pretty intensely, with some like almost funk influences sprinkled in here and there. Track 4 on the album is Forgiveness. First slow song on the album kind of saunters along at a comfortable, lilting pace. This is one of the more tasteful love songs that I've heard. Nothing too remarkable about this one, but it flows pretty well and fits in really well with the track listing. Track 5 is Fake Happy. This song, you can kind of tell, is more rooted in some kind of like Paramore's like emo music roots and stuff. A lot of like the dyed hair, emo girl type stuff. But it's really, it updates that sound for a tasteful, like, modern audience presentation. Definitely one of like the harder hitting tracks on the album as well. There's a lot of stuff here that's just like, the choruses are strong, the beats are strong. Nothing about this track really sets it off to be like, well, I mean, there's nothing to question on this track. So far on this album, there's very little to lead you to question any artistic choices on this record. Even though like you could view this as much more of a commercial pop record, there's just nothing on this that's all that bad at all. Track 6 is 26, a really lovely acoustic track that finishes off side 1 of the record. The violin accents and subtle orchestral movements really help pitch this track up a bit and really help move things along, while helping the song sound really delicate as well. So far, I'd say this is definitely the most surprising track on the record to me, with like almost a singer-songwriter approach to songwriting. That is it for side 1. We're gonna come back with you for side 2 here in just a moment. Thank you so much for watching this far, and we'll see you on the flip side. Okay, we've got side 2 of the record. Track 7 is called Pool. This song kicks off side 2 with some sort of like music box sample that turns into the melody of the track in a really incredibly creative way that I really wasn't expecting. It caught me super off guard for the beginning of this song to transition into such a large portion of the rest of the track. This track also kicks back up the tempo as compared to how side A finished, with some more like really fun bubblegum pop beats. Track 8 is Grudges. Probably the closest to Paramore's early sound on this record. Grudges pretty much feels traditionally rooted in pop punk more so than anything else on the record. It still is a pretty fun track with some catchy tempos and lyrics. Track 9, which is Caught in the Middle. This song is pretty much immediately catchy, with some groovy guitar tracks that are tight and reverbed out and lead into a very fun chorus that's definitely just an earworm. Like, this is very much like a radio song on this album. Caught in the Middle definitely bops pretty hard. Track 10 of the record is Idle Warship, another bop with more catchy as hell beats and interesting arrangements to help kind of pull you along through the track. Not a moment is really wasted on here, with some very dancey segments that make up pretty much most of the track. And I believe I actually have heard this track before. I think this one did get some radio play. I didn't know it at the time to be a Paramore song, but it fits well in the context with this album and overall adds to the entire experience. Track 11, I think, was probably my favorite track on the album. It's called No Friend. Really funky bass grooves lead into this track that are just really infectiously groovy. This track leads in with some really subdued male vocals, I think. They're kind of lowered in the mix, and they sort of build and build tension, and then when you think the track is going to give you a full release, it just keeps looping. And I think this is one of the more fascinating tracks on the album, and it's just presented in this really weird, interesting way that is borderline proggy. I mean, this track sounds like you could probably place this on a Porcupine Tree album if it weren't for some of the vocal delivery. And even still, it still works pretty well. It's definitely, I'd say, a left hook right at the end of this album. But I'd say it's probably my favorite track just for what they're trying here. I think it's a really interesting cherry on top of this whole thing. Track 12 is Tell Me How. The last track on the album, another slow song with some leading piano that evolves into some light synths with some more orchestral stuff similar to how the last side of the record ended, with some very lovely arrangements that are accented with Hayley Williams' reverbed out vocals. And it's maybe not the most interesting closer track they could have gone with, but it is perfectly fitting. This record as a whole absolutely caught me off guard because I've just never really been into Paramore. No one has played, I've never gone out of my way to listen to Misery Business or any of that kind of stuff. And I never really thought it was all that bad. If you had told me to listen to Paramore and not just put it on for me, I just wouldn't have. There would have been no chance. But this album here is phenomenal. I am so surprised with how good this record is. I think if you haven't listened to After Laughter, or if you have listened to it and you haven't really thought much of it, I'd say go back and listen to it, because this thing is really attention-getting. It's really solid pop. It's really solid grooves on this thing. Just everything about this album is it's watertight. There's nothing about this album that's not just really, really well done. Tell me what I should review next. What do you think of this record? Leave it in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one. I am also preparing another Suffering series to give you a preview. It involves some Imagine Dragons, so hopefully you guys will tune in with me and watch me suffer through some Imagine Dragons. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the flip side.